The leather chair across from my desk had never looked more threatening. Marcus Walsh, my business partner of 7 years, lounged in it like a cat about to pounce. Document folder balanced on his knee, expensive watch catching the late afternoon sun. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Catherine," he said, voice dripping with false sympathy, "we need to talk about the future of Walsh and Porter Solutions." I kept my face neutral, though my stomach tightened. Something in his tone, in the way he'd walked in unannounced at 4:45 p.m. on a Friday, set off every alarm bell I developed in 15 years of corporate survival. "Of course," I replied, closing my laptop. "What's on your mind?" He leaned forward, placing the folder on my desk with theatrical precision. "The board has concerns. Significant ones. About your direction for the company." The board. As if we had some vast corporate structure instead of a 4-person advisory panel that Marcus had handpicked last year. I'd objected then, seeing it for what it was, the first move in a longer game. I should have fought harder. "Interesting," I said, not touching the folder. "Considering our revenue is up 40% since I implemented the new client acquisition strategy." Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "Numbers can be misleading. We're talking about vision, Catherine. The bigger picture." He paused, studying me like a specimen under glass. "The board feels, and I agree, that your approach is too cautious, too traditional." I almost laughed. Cautious. That's what they called building sustainable client relationships and maintaining quality control. Unlike Marcus's approach of chasing quick wins and cutting corners, which had nearly bankrupted us twice before my cautious strategies saved us. "The market's changing," he continued. "We need to be aggressive. Take bigger risks. The board has approved a new direction." He tapped the folder. "One that, unfortunately, doesn't include you in a leadership position." There it was, the knife, finally showing itself after months of shadow play. "You want to buy me out," I said flatly. His smile widened. "Smart as always, Kate. Though want isn't quite accurate. This isn't a negotiation." I opened the folder. The numbers hit me like a physical blow. They were offering 15% of my shares' actual value, wrapped in legal language about performance concerns and breach of fiduciary duty. Complete fabrication, but expensive lawyers can make fiction sound remarkably legitimate. "This is absurd," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "I built half this company. Our biggest clients are my relationships." "Were your relationships," he corrected smoothly. "Check page 3. The board has already voted to remove you from all client accounts. As of Monday, they'll be working directly with me." I flipped to the page. The signatures were already there, including Thomas Reed's, my mentor from business school, the man who'd helped us secure our first round of funding. The betrayal stung more than I wanted to admit. "And if I refuse?" Marcus's smile turned predatory. "Then on Monday, the board files a formal complaint alleging mismanagement and breach of contract. The evidence is quite compelling. You'd be amazed what a good forensic accountant can construct with access to company records." He leaned back, adjusting his cuffs. "Your reputation would never recover. No one wants to hire an executive with fraud allegations, even unfounded ones." I stared at him, this man I trusted. We'd started the company in my garage, living on coffee and determination, sharing dreams of building something meaningful. Now he sat there, ready to destroy everything we built, everything I'd sacrificed for, and he was enjoying it. "You have 24 hours, he said, standing. "Sign the papers, take the money, walk away quietly, or don't, and watch everything you've built burn down around you. Your choice." He strode out, leaving the folder open on my desk like a wound. I sat there as the sun set, casting long shadows across the office. Our office. Pictures on the wall tracked our company's growth. The first client celebration, the office opening, team photos from each year. My life's work, being stripped away in a single afternoon. But as the initial shock faded, something else took its place. Not despair, not defeat. Something colder, clearer. Because Marcus, for all his plotting, had made one critical mistake. He thought he knew all my cards. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd hoped never to use. "James, it's Catherine Porter. Remember that conversation we had about Marcus's loans? I think it's time we discussed terms." The line crackled with static. Then James Sullivan's smooth voice came through. "I was wondering when you'd call. Shall we meet?" "Tonight," I said. And James, bring everything you have. I hung up and looked around my office one last time. Tomorrow, I would sign those papers. I would smile, shake Marcus's hand, and walk away quietly. And then I would show him exactly what cautious really meant. Later that night, in a private room at the Sterling Hotel's restaurant, James Sullivan laid out the full picture of Marcus's secret empire of debt. Credit cards, personal loans, high-interest private lending, all hidden from the company books, all teetering on the edge of default. He's leveraged to the hilt, James explained, sliding documents across the table, using company assets as unofficial collateral. One missed payment and the whole house of cards comes down. I studied the numbers, each page revealing more of Marcus's desperate financial gymnastics. How has he kept this hidden? James shrugged. Creative accounting and a lot of different lenders. But they're getting nervous. Word is he's been missing payments. How much to buy all of it? He named a figure that made my throat tighten. Nearly everything I had, including my emergency fund and the money from my mother's estate. But it would be enough. You sure about this? James asked, watching me carefully. Once you start down this road. I thought about Marcus's smirk, about the years of subtle undermining, about how he convinced the board to turn on me. Yes, I said. I'm sure. We spent the next 3 hours working out the details. By the time I left, everything was in motion. In less than 12 hours, I would sign away my visible power in the company. But by Monday morning, I would control something far more valuable, every cent Marcus owed. As I drove home in the quiet hours before dawn, I felt strangely peaceful. Marcus thought he was forcing me into a corner, but he'd actually given me exactly what I needed. A way to prove that sometimes the most dangerous moves are the ones that look like surrender. I parked in my driveway, watching the first hints of sunrise paint the sky. In a few hours, I would walk into that office and play my part. I would be the defeated partner, the cautious one who didn't have the stomach for real business. But as I sat there, watching the world wake up, I allowed myself a small smile. Because by this time tomorrow, Marcus would learn what I'd known all along, that true power isn't in what you can take. It's in what you make others give up willingly. The sun rose fully, marking the start of a day that would change everything. I was ready. The fountain pen felt heavy in my hand as I signed away 7 years of my life. Marcus stood over my shoulder, practically vibrating with poorly concealed triumph. Each scratch of the nib against paper was another victory for him, another step toward what he thought was his ultimate win. Initial here, and here, he said, pointing to marked lines with manicured precision, and the final signature on the last page. I signed everything without hesitation, my handwriting steady and clear. No point in betraying the anticipation building in my chest. The real show wouldn't start for another 18 hours. Well, Marcus said, gathering the papers with exaggerated care. I appreciate your professionalism about this, Catherine. The severance payment will be processed Monday morning. I stood smoothing my blazer. Of course. Though I do have one question. He paused, already halfway to the door. Oh? Did you ever actually read the terms of your business loans? The fine print, I mean. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, then the first hint of unease. What are you talking about? I smiled, gentle and calm. Nothing important. Just curious. Have a good weekend, Marcus. He left without another word, but the spring in his step was gone. I planted the first seed of doubt, and now all I had to do was wait. I spent that Saturday methodically removing personal items from my office, carefully packing away the visible signs of my time at Walsh & Porter Solutions. Every few minutes, my phone buzzed with updates from James's team as they executed our plan with surgical precision. First set of loan transfers complete. One message read. Second batch processing now. All credit lines secured. Documentation updated. Final transfers confirmed. Everything's ready for Monday. By sunset, my office was empty except for company property. I stood in the doorway one last time, remembering the day Marcus and I had first walked into this space. We'd been so full of dreams then, of plans to build something that mattered. Somewhere along the way, he'd lost sight of that. Or maybe he'd never really shared those dreams at all. My phone buzzed one final time. James himself. It's done. All debts acquired. Legal team standing by for Monday morning. I texted back a simple thank you and drove home, feeling the weight of tomorrow pressing against my chest. Not anxiety, anticipation. Sunday crawled by with excruciating slowness. I knew Marcus would be in his office, preparing for what he thought would be his grand ascension on Monday morning. He probably spent hours rehearsing speeches, planning changes, imagining his moment of complete control. Let him plan. Let him dream. The best lessons are the ones we never see coming. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear, the kind of autumn day that promises change. I dressed carefully, charcoal gray suit, cream silk blouse. The pearl necklace my mother left me. Power written in fabric and stone. At exactly 8:47 a.m., my phone lit up with a text from our office manager, Diana. OMG, Marcus just got a call. He's SC Roy aiming in his office. What did you do? I smiled, imagining the scene. Right about now, Marcus would be learning that every single one of his loans, personal and business, had been purchased by a new creditor. One who was calling in all his debt immediately, as was their legal right under the terms he'd never bothered to read carefully. At 9:03 a.m., another text. He's trying to call his bank. They keep transferring him to different departments. His face is purple. I sat in my home office, sipping coffee, watching the drama unfold through the steady stream of messages from other employees. Marcus attempting to reach his financial advisor. Marcus shouting at his assistant to get his lawyer on the phone. Marcus slowly realizing that every financial lifeline he counted on had disappeared. At 9:45 a.m., James called. He just figured out it was you, he said, amusement clear in his voice. Demanded to know how you could possibly have the resources to buy his debt. I explained that when someone has been quietly building a separate investment portfolio for years, they can do surprising things. I leaned back in my chair. How did he take that? Not well. Especially when I explained the terms of repayment. Another text from Diana. Board members arriving for emergency meeting. Marcus looks like he's about to explode. Perfect timing. At 10:30 a.m., my phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called again, and again. Each time, I watched it ring out. Finally, a text. We need to talk. Now. I waited exactly 17 minutes before responding. I'm available for lunch. Sterling Hotel, noon. Private dining room. His reply was immediate. I'll be there. I spent the next hour reviewing the documents James had prepared, making sure every detail was perfect. This meeting wasn't about revenge. It was about reconstruction. At precisely noon, I walked into the Sterling's private dining room. Marcus was already there, sitting rigid in his chair, face tight with barely controlled rage. How? He demanded before I could even sit down. How did you do this? I took my time settling into my seat, smoothing my napkin across my lap. The same way I built our client relationships, Marcus. Carefully, methodically, cautiously. He leaned forward, hands clenched on the table. This is insane. You can't just buy someone's debt and demand immediate repayment. I'll fight this. Actually, I can. It's all in the terms you signed. Page 47. Paragraph 3 of your largest loan agreement. In the event of ownership transfer, the new creditor maintains the right to modify payment terms or demand immediate satisfaction of the debt. You really should read the fine print. I'll go bankrupt, he said, voice cracking slightly. Yes, I agree calmly. Unless we can reach an agreement. He stared at me, realization dawning. What do you want? I pulled out a folder, similar to the one he presented me with just days ago, and slid it across the table. Everything, I said simply. Your shares in the company, your board seats, complete control. You can't be serious. I am, and before you decide to fight this, remember, I now control every cent you owe. If you don't sign, I'll call in all the debt. Every loan, every credit line. By this time tomorrow, you'll be in bankruptcy court watching your entire life implode. His face went through a fascinating series of emotions: rage, disbelief, fear, and finally, defeat. My father built this company, he whispered. No, I corrected gently. Your father started it. We built it. And then you tried to steal it. I tapped the folder. Now you have a choice. Sign everything over to me and I'll restructure your debt. Give you reasonable terms, a path to pay it off. Or don't sign and learn what bankruptcy really feels like. For a long moment, the only sound was the gentle clink of distant silverware and the pounding of my own heart. Then slowly, Marcus reached for the folder. I watched him sign every page, each signature more defeated than the last. When he finished, he looked up at me with something close to admiration mixed with his hatred. "I underestimated you," he said quietly. "Yes," I agreed. "You did." He stood straightening his jacket with shaking hands. "What happens now?" "Now, you go back to the office and announce your immediate resignation. You tell everyone it's for personal reasons. You thank them for their time and you walk away. By the end of the day, your office will be empty. And if I don't," I smiled, "then everyone learns exactly why you're leaving. Every detail of your hidden debt. Every risky decision you tried to cover up. Every lie you told the board. Which version would you prefer?" He walked out without another word, leaving the signed documents on the table between us. I sat there for a long time after he left, letting the magnitude of what I just accomplished sink in. In less than 72 hours, I'd gone from nearly losing everything to gaining complete control. My phone buzzed. "Diana again. Marcus just announced he's leaving. Emergency all-hands meeting in 30 minutes. What is happening?" I stood gathering my things with careful precision. It was time for the next phase, rebuilding what Marcus had nearly destroyed. But first, I had an all-hands meeting to attend. After all, every good story needs a proper ending. The conference room hummed with nervous energy as I walked in. Every chair was filled, with more employees standing along the walls, all eyes fixed on the empty spot at the head of the table where Marcus usually held court. His dramatic resignation announcement had sent shockwaves through the office, and now everyone was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I took my seat quietly, noting the mixture of confusion and relief on people's faces. Many of them had expected me to be gone by now, stripped of power and position. Instead, here I was, calm and composed, while Marcus's desk was being cleared by building maintenance. Thomas Reed, my former mentor and board member, cleared his throat. "Given the unexpected circumstances, we should discuss immediate leadership transitions and—" Actually, I interrupted smoothly, sliding copies of the newly signed ownership documents across the table. "That's already been handled." The room fell silent as Thomas picked up the papers, his face going pale as he read. The other board members leaned in, their expressions shifting from confusion to shock as they realized what they were seeing. This gives you controlling interest," Thomas stammered. "How did you—" "The details aren't important," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "What matters is moving forward, and to do that, we need to address the cancer that's been growing in this company." I stood buttoning my blazer with deliberate precision. For the past year, Marcus has been making increasingly risky financial decisions, hiding debt, and undermining client relationships. He convinced this board to support his attempt to force me out, not because I was ineffective, but because I was the only one asking questions about his methods. Thomas wouldn't meet my eyes. None of the board members would. "That ends today," I continued. "I'm dissolving the current board, effective immediately. New members will be appointed within 30 days, chosen for their expertise and integrity, not their willingness to rubber stamp bad decisions." One of the junior board members, Peterson, started to protest. I cut him off with a raised hand. "You might want to check your email before objecting, James. The SEC would be very interested in those trades you made right after Marcus shared confidential company information last month." He shut his mouth so fast his teeth clicked. I turned to address the wider room. "To everyone else, I want to be clear. This is a fresh start. No more hidden agendas, no more politics, no more watching good work get buried under bad leadership. From now on, we succeed or fail based on merit, not manipulation." Diana, our office manager, was the first to break into a smile. Others followed, the tension in the room slowly transforming into something else. Hope, maybe, or relief. "There will be changes," I acknowledged, "but they'll make us stronger, not weaker. Any questions?" Hands shot up across the room. I spent the next hour answering them, being as transparent as possible about where we were headed. By the time the meeting ended, the energy had shifted completely. People were talking, planning, already adapting to the new reality. As the room cleared out, Thomas lingered behind. He looked older somehow, diminished. "Catherine," he started, "I need to explain." "No," I cut him off gently. "You don't. You chose a side, Thomas. The wrong one. Sometimes that's all there is to say." He nodded slowly, gathering his things. At the door, he paused. "You know, I taught corporate strategy for 20 years, wrote books about it, and I never saw this coming. I smiled faintly. That's because you were looking for aggression, not patience. Sometimes the quietest moves are the most decisive. After you left, I sat alone in the conference room, looking out over the city skyline. The same view I'd stared at countless times while Marcus held forth about his grand visions. Now it was my view, earned through careful planning and perfect timing. My phone buzzed. A message from James Sullivan. Just heard from Marcus's lawyer. He's not going to fight the transfer. Smart man, finally. I typed back a quick, "Thank you for everything," and stood smoothing my skirt. Time to get to work. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. I appointed a new board, bringing in experienced leaders who shared my vision for sustainable growth. We conducted a full audit of the company's finances, cleaning up the mess Marcus had left behind. Every day brought new discoveries of his mismanagement, but also new opportunities to rebuild stronger. Client meetings were particularly satisfying. Many of them had been nervous about Marcus's aggressive tactics, but were visibly relieved to work with me directly again. 3 major accounts that had been considering leaving renewed their contracts within the first month. One afternoon, about 6 weeks after the takeover, I received an unexpected visitor. Sandra Walsh, Marcus's mother and the widow of our company's founder, appeared in my office doorway. "Do you have a moment?" she asked quietly. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the same one where Marcus had sat to deliver his ultimatum that felt like a lifetime ago. Sandra settled in, studying me with clear, intelligent eyes. "I've been watching," she said finally, "what you've done with the company, the changes you've made." I waited, keeping my expression neutral. "William, my husband, would have approved," she continued. "He always said the measure of a business isn't in its profits, but in its foundation." Marcus never understood that. "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it, "about how things ended with him." She waved away my apology. "Don't be. My son made his choices. But I'm not here about him. I'm here about the future." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. So many important moments in my life lately had involved folders, and placed it on my desk. "William left something in trust," she explained. "A separate set of patents from his early work. They weren't part of the company assets because he wasn't sure they'd ever be viable. But with the new technologies available now." I opened the folder and began reading. With each page, my excitement grew. The applications for these patents in today's market were staggering. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked finally. Sandra smiled, her first real smile of the meeting. "Because you understand what William understood. That business isn't about quick wins or power plays. It's about building something that lasts." She stood, straightening her jacket. "The patents are yours if you want them. Use them well." After she left, I sat back in my chair, the folder open before me. Through my office windows, I could see our team working, talking, collaborating with new energy. The shadow of Marcus's leadership was finally fading, replaced by something brighter, more sustainable. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Marcus had taken a position with a small firm in Arizona, far from the circles of power he'd once dominated. I found I didn't care. He was part of the past, and I was focused on the future. That evening, as I walked through the office before heading home, I passed the wall of company photos. Marcus's face still appeared in many of them, a reminder of where we'd started. But instead of removing them, I'd ordered a new installation, a timeline of our company's evolution, including the recent changes. Because every story needs its turning points, its moments of truth. Deanna caught me studying the display. "Should we take down the old photos?" she asked hesitantly. I shook my head. "No, they're part of our history. But more importantly, they're a reminder." "Of what?" "That sometimes the strongest response to a threat isn't fighting back immediately. It's waiting, watching, and choosing the perfect moment to show your true power." She nodded thoughtfully. "You know, everyone thought you were just going to accept it. When Marcus tried to push you out, they said you were too—" what was the word they used? "Cautious?" I suggested with a small smile. "Yeah, that's it." She grinned. "Guess they learned." Indeed they had. And so had I. 6 months after Marcus's departure, Walsh and Porter Solutions was transformed. Our client base had grown by 30%, employee satisfaction scores were at an all-time high, and the new patents we developed from William Walsh's trust were revolutionizing our industry. I sat in my office, my rightfully earned office, reviewing quarterly reports when an email arrived from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read simply, "You were right." It was from Marcus. "I underestimated you," he wrote. "Not just your strategy, but your vision. The company is stronger now than it ever was under my leadership. I won't ask for forgiveness, but I wanted you to know you proved me wrong about everything, including what real power looks like." I closed the email without responding. Some victories don't need acknowledgement. They simply need to be lived. Looking out over the city as the sun set, I thought about power, real power. Not the kind that comes from forcing others to submit, but the kind that comes from building something so strong that others choose to follow. Marcus had never understood the difference. But I did, and now so did everyone else.